It's time for ROTD Weekend. Do you express your love for people through food and cooking? I'm guessing you probably do, but I'm really curious about whether it's the same way that I do it. So it's been really interesting. I have been with Marty now for 8 years. We literally just celebrated our 8-year anniversary. It was just this past week. And I have thought a lot recently about what a wonderful treat it has been to have somebody new in my life that I cook for recently. And in particular, Marty, because he doesn't have as large a set of loved foods as the other people in my life do. It's a more limited set, and he doesn't like a lot of herbs. There's a lot of things that he doesn't like as much. And what I've realized, and what he has told me too, which of course feels really good, is that what I actually am doing when I'm cooking so very often is trying to craft meals that he will like. If I'm cooking for me and him, I'm trying to find something that he will really love. And not like just something I know he loves. Like I know that he loves chicken piccata, for instance, and also like fish piccata, lemon sauce, capers. That is one of the things he adores. I know that if I make that for him, maybe with some homemade fresh pasta or even like the store-bought fresh pasta, he is going to love that meal. But then doing that thing where I'm like, okay, he loves lemon and capers on things. What if I do a lemon caper salad dressing? Or what if you know what I mean? Like I'm constantly coming up with new ideas, and he will say to me quite often, like, oh, I've never had this dish before. You just created this and it's exactly like to my taste. So part of like me showing my love for him is knowing or guessing what he likes and like trying to nail it, you know, and make him smile when he bites into that food that I've cooked for him. Because I think in particular, he has struggled with a lot of times people making food that he doesn't like, or even people criticizing him for not liking things when he is eating my food and he knows that I've taken that time and that he is so often delighted with the result. Like it's just an extra like feel good thing between us, you know? So I would love to hear from you. How do you show your love through food and cooking? If you do, I will post the question in our Facebook group, but you can also email me. So if you want to answer in the Facebook group, go to facebook.com/groups/recipeotd, and you can tell me there, or send me an email, cookthestory@gmail.com. And I would love to hear what you have to say on this. I'm super curious. And if I get some answers, I will maybe read them closer to Valentine's Day. Now, as to my guest today, well, I was just in Las Vegas. I told you I was going to the Fancy Food Show. I was also at a food blogging conference, and Marty was actually with me at the beginning of the week as we celebrated our anniversary. So I was not at home to record an interview, but don't worry, I have got just the thing for you. I am sharing a conversation from way back between me and my wonderful boyfriend, Marty, about one of the recipes that he cooks. And it is a lovely conversation. I know you're going to love hearing from him. He is an adorable human being, and he really has a lot to say about this particular food that he cooks so well. So let's hear from my wonderful boyfriend, Martin Michalak. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you are right now standing in front of a whiteboard. Nobody can see you. I can see you. And we're doing this over Zoom, even though we're in the same house right now. There's a whiteboard behind you because you do a lot of explaining with a whiteboard, but it's not usually cooking. What are you usually explaining?
I actually teach university mathematics. So during COVID, I was in this room for many class sessions and just doing, live lectures, but over Zoom instead of in person. So it's nice to be back in the classroom. But, COVID was quite an experience. Tried to, of course, give my students as best of an experience as I could. They were isolated. So I tried to make that the best I could for them.
Well, now we're like several years off of that, but you still use it sometimes for like recording review sessions. And so that skill and that whiteboard have come in handy.
That's entirely correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's still good. Or, you get sick, you don't want to miss class. You don't want to let your students down. So you just take over from home for a day and get back when you can.
What classes do you teach?
Calculus 3. So that's the multivariate calculus. It's a different name in different universities. In our university, Calc 3, other universities have it as multivariate calc.
So that's something that is quite complicated for people who don't have a mathematics background, yeah?
Most of the students are engineering students. So math majors take it, physics majors take it, sure. Chemistry majors, astronomy majors, but usually engineering majors.
And what role does cooking play in this part of your life?
You know what? In fairness, not much. But, I think because I have kind of an analytical mind, I unfortunately tend to view cooking as gotta get the food, gotta eat the food so I can get back to other activities. So, I tend to have a bit of a functional opinion about food.
I know you have a surprise recipe for me without necessarily giving that away. Why don't you tell us what kinds of things you do cook?
Again, tends to be fairly simple stuff, things that are easy to make, things that are fast to make. My philosophy is that if you spent longer cooking it than you do eating it, then that's a efficiency issue. Of course, certainly food experiences can be wonderful and they can be worth the effort. But, for just day to day, I tend to enjoy eating more than I enjoy cooking. So cooking time should be comparable to eating time is my philosophy.
You mean your own cooking time? You're okay with
my own cooking time, cooking for myself, just, making food for myself.
In fact, I mean, this is not really cooking, but I wasn't going to ask you this, going to ask you. You eat the same breakfast, brunch, lunch sort of thing pretty much every single day? Could you tell everybody? That's not the recipe, right? That's not your secret recipe, right?
No, it's not. It's not.
So please tell me about it though.
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of turkey sandwiches and, just easy to make. You can think about other things while doing it. So kind of get lost daydreaming about whatever and then just kind of make those sandwiches and eat them. It's not maybe some some nice tasty yogurt for the side. I tend to prefer that kind of simplicity.
It's not just any turkey sandwich. It is. Sorry, I'm going to answer for you now. It is
fine. I was trying to avoid plugging any particular brands, but
no, you can't.
Boar's Head makes fantastic meat and almost everything I try by them is good. So I like their cracked pepper turkey, but I like a lot of their other meats as well. So they just make really high quality products, very tasty, good stuff. My background is Polish, so it's hard to get good bread in the United States, but I do like the pumpernickel from Publix. Very, very big favorite. So
okay, and now
I could eat that all day long.
I'm going to now say it is a slice of pumpernickel bread, spread thinly with mayonnaise, and 2 thin slices of Boar's Head cracked pepper turkey, eaten in 3 to 4 bites, followed by another slice of pumpernickel bread.
And then another one after that, generally, yes. And then a side of some like peach yogurt or cherry yogurt. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
that is correct.
It's the Yoplait peach harvest yogurt or cherry yogurt.
Yes, they do make you good yogurt. So you kind of just get used to it and you just eat it. Like I said, my mind's usually somewhere else anyway. So
actually, in terms of your efficiency situation, you eat the same things, you buy the same things. Your grocery trip is actually very much buy the same things at the grocery store all the time also, right?
Yeah, that also, again, my mind's often somewhere else. So planning a grocery trip is sometimes a bit of, I don't want to say a distraction, but it can be stressful. So, just buying the same things over and over again. I don't know, just kind of, Einstein said he'd pretty much wear the same clothes every day if people didn't look down on him for it. So
there you go.
So yeah, I'm like Einstein that way.
Yeah, no, you are like Einstein in probably more than one way. I'm sure he would have liked your turkey sandwiches.
I have crazy hair too, so that way too.
Yeah, you do. And eyebrows, crazy eyebrows.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Okay, so do you have a surprise recipe for me today?
In keeping in line with my philosophy, my recipe is pretty simple. It's something people eat a lot, but, I've been making it for a long time. So I think maybe you'll find I have a surprising amount of opinions on the matter. And that is just scrambled eggs. But there's more. The devil is in the details, as they say.
Yeah. Okay, no, this is great. I didn't know what you were going to choose. And I know from experience that you do make some rather wonderful scrambled eggs. Okay, great. Good choice. Okay. How do you start?
Well, okay, first of all, this is the first recipe I learned to make when I was like 9. I don't even know. My mom showed me how to make them. And then I've been doing this for many, many years. So I guess, first of all, the choice is what oil to use. And that's where, you'll see I'm pretty particular about stuff. Don't use oil at all. Don't ever use oil. Oil will make your eggs oily. So I'm not a big fan of like breakfast at diners because their eggs are always oily. Butter, yeah, sure. Butter's a good choice. It adds buttery flavor also. I tend to use the shed spread Country Crock. It is made from vegetable oil, but it doesn't, I don't know, maybe because it's solid at room temperature rather than liquid at room temperature or something like that. It does not add oiliness and like bleh to your dish.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So yeah, I would use the shed spread or butter.
So that's the Country Crock Shed Spread brand margarine.
Yes, that's right.
And that makes sense to me. I think maybe because it has that dairy flavor to it, it's not just adding an oily flavor. And so maybe that is why it doesn't have that like oiliness so much.
And it doesn't like leave drops of, if you make fried eggs with it, it doesn't leave droplets of oil all over your fried eggs. I'm not a big fan of that.
So I'm going to just ask you because I don't think I know the answer to this. I know that you actually buy on those grocery trips where you buy the same things all the time. If you are in need of margarine type products, you actually buy two different brands. There's another brand that you buy, but you do not use it to cook your eggs. What is that brand and why do you not use it to cook your eggs?
Brummel and Brown, very good. So yeah, no, I like one thing for cooking and one thing for putting on sandwiches and bread and things like that. So the Brummel and Brown is for spreading on bread or other things like that. And the shed spread's for cooking on. I use it to cook whenever I cook anything, whenever I fry anything, I pretty much use the shed spread.
And I just want to clarify for those who are listening, this is when Marty is doing the cooking, not when I am doing the cooking. I don't think I've ever cooked. I do your eggs. Sometimes I'll use it. Usually I grab the butter, but I do. So that is the thing that is happening in my home sometimes, but when Marty is at the stove. And the Brummel and Brown, I'm just going to say it actually is really nice in terms of margarines. It's got like yogurt in it or something. So it's like really like cool and creamy and tasty. It's nice.
I agree. It's cool. It has a coolness to it. You eat it and it has like a freshness to it that you're like, yes, that's very nice. So yeah, you put it on some bread. It's really good stuff.
Okay. But yeah, don't use that for the eggs. You get some some of the shed spread. And what are you putting it in?
So, just a non-stick, so Teflonated or whatever frying pan or, some other non-stick frying pan. And then that goes right on the stove.
And how much of that do you use?
I typically use a wooden spoon and maybe half of that wooden spoon's worth. If you want a little more, it's not going to make it's going to get heavy if you fill that wooden spoon up. But heapings, half of a heaping spoon, a wooden spoon of it. But if you pull that spoon up, it's going to get a little heavy. But if you add a little bit extra, it's going to add some more creaminess to the eggs, which isn't a bad thing.
And of course, you don't measure the way that I do. I am thinking it's somewhere around an actual teaspoon, measured teaspoon, maybe teaspoon and a half.
Heaping teaspoon?
No, like the measurement of a teaspoon.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's kind of like the spoon that I use to stir coffee, kind of rounded.
Right on.
You think about like that?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that goes into your nonstick pan on the stove at what temperature?
You're just trying to melt that butter. So turn that thing all the way up. I usually turn it up after I put the butter in, but yeah, you don't want the butter to start browning or anything like that. You just want it melted. So melt that butter, turn that thing up. And then comes the part that I used to get a lot of flack about. You turn that stove off. You don't leave it on once that butter is melted. And so you're going to be putting your eggs onto melted butter, but not hot. Because if you put them on hot, they're going to start cooking while you're still putting the rest on. So you're going to get an uneven cook on your eggs. Now, the controversy I used to hear is you can't put eggs on a cold pan because they're going to stick to the pan, blah, blah, blah. No, they're not going to stick to the pan. It's going to be fine. Sure, maybe with a cast iron pan, but a cast iron pan is going to get your eggs, burnt and dry in places anyway. So we're not using a cast iron pan. I'm using a non-stick pan. So yeah, it'll be fine.
Some people do swear by eggs in the cast iron, but I totally know what you're talking about. Like, actually, I think even this would help people if they're trying to do it in the cast iron, because what you're doing is you're melting the butter, then you're turning the heat off so that you have a chance to like let things not stick and kind of work instead of like all of a sudden starting to burn or stick and brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got
and you're cracking your eggs onto the pan, but you're able to crack all your eggs without some of them starting to cook, because they cook pretty fast once they start going.
So for that amount of butter or margarine that we put in there, how many eggs are you cracking into that pan that you've turned off?
Generally 3.
Okay.
But if you want to do more than 3, I would not say you should double the amount of butter.
Oh, good.
Just a little. You're just trying to coat the bottom of the pan, keep it from I don't know, sticking, I guess, but whatever.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Okay, next.
So, something I do that other people don't do is I pull out, once you've got those eggs in that pan, before you break them up, I pull out the little, I don't know what it is. It's like a little embryo, a little stringy bit that's on those eggs. I find that if you cook that, it kind of changes the way the eggs taste. And I also don't like the texture of it. So I pull those out. I, remove them both by whatever way you can. And of course, having the pan not be on gives you a minute or so to actually do that before the eggs start cooking on you.
Okay. So you've cracked your 3 eggs into the pan that has the melted shed spread.
Correct.
The pan is off. And then
yes.
Where is this? What
it's
is
right up against the yolk. It's this little stringy bit. I guess if the eggs was fertilized, that would then be the developing little chicken. Oh. But in an unfertilized egg, that's just a little bit.
Okay. So, and you pull that out with your fingers.
Sometimes I'm bad and use the eggshell. I would not recommend using the eggshell. That sounds like a great way to get salmonella. But something that's not going to scratch up your pan. Use that to. It's not going to come out very. It's attached to the yolk, so you're going to have to kind of cut it off and then pull it out.
Okay, sounds good.
As I said, I'm particular.
Yeah. Right. I don't actually think you. I didn't know you did this step. I'm learning more about you every day.
Yeah, that thing affects the flavor of the eggs, at least in my opinion. Maybe it's my imagination, but
no. Okay, so then what?
All right, then you turn that pan back on, and then you pop each little yolk with your spoon, and then mix. Not thoroughly. Don't mix thoroughly. And that's why we're cracking them in a pan instead of into a cup at a time. You don't want it mixed fully. You just want it mixed. There still should be white areas and yellow areas, but you want it kind of roughly distributed.
Why is that? A lot of people do like them thoroughly mixed. What is your goal here?
You know what? I don't know. I like it better that way. I also, I guess, maybe if you mix it too much, it starts to get a little frothy or something like that. You start to beat the eggs, I guess, and maybe that changes the flavor also. But no, I kind of I like the strong yolk flavor that you still get when you have little patches, small patches of yolk. But I'm a big fan of that flavor. Yeah, I don't know. It's just always worked out well for me.
That's interesting because you're not as much a fan of cooked egg whites.
True. Yeah, I'm not a fan of good cooked egg whites. Yes,
so maybe
they do. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe for you, when you mix it together, it dilutes the yolk flavor and gives the yolk flavor egg white flavor. Whereas if you keep them a little bit separated, you can tolerate the bit of whites that you have to have, but you get some really nice yolky flavor.
Yeah. Perhaps
something
that
like
sounds that. Yeah, sure. I'll buy that.
Okay. I love it. Okay. So
let's see. So then at that point, you're slowly mixing and basically moving keeping the egg from sticking to the pan, just scraping it off the bottom again, as people do. It should just be a couple minutes until it's ready. So don't make it so that it's hard and dry. Make it so it's still a little moist, but should be pretty fluffy when you're just about done.
So you turned the heat on at some point. So you cracked them in, you pulled those things out, stirred it.
Right, after the eggs are in the pan, after the little weird bit is removed, that's when you turn that pan back on and start mixing. You can have the heat on while you're mixing.
And what temperature do you have the heat on for that?
Yeah. So medium high. Mm-hmm. Not too hot, or they're gonna start drying on you, and not hot enough to make them start.
And you start transferring them to a plate. They're still a little glossy, or are they like?
They're glossy, yes. Mm-hmm. And ideally, right before they're finished, you tear in a slice of Boar's Head American cheese in there, and that is the wonderful finishing touch. And it's still warm. You can actually do it after you turn the pan off, because the warmth from the eggs will melt that cheese anyway. So yeah, that's like my wonderful, wonderful little finishing touch. So not necessary. Again, doesn't have to be American cheese, doesn't have to be Boar's Head American cheese, but I would definitely recommend that specific combination.
I have many things to say about this. I hope it's okay with you. So first of all, this is not sponsored by Boar's Head in any way.
It is not. I just love their stuff.
Marty loves Boar's Head. We live a 3-minute drive from a Publix that carries a wide variety, and these are our favorites. And it is crucially the white American cheese by Boar's Head. The orange is fine, but the white is somehow better. I agree.
Yeah. And you know what? People hear American cheese and they have something specific in their heads, but for some reason, Boar's Head cheeses just taste different than other products, other brands.
It's so true. We did, I don't know if you remember when Ed was over for dinner not long ago, we did some kind of steak sandwich and we put that on there, and he was like, that cheese, what is that cheese? And we're like, American cheese. He was like, no way. It is not like normal American cheese. It's not cheese slices. It's not in plastic. It's not like Velveeta-y soft or anything like that. It's very much a sliced cheese that melts beautifully and has great flavor, right?
Yeah. And I understand there's 2 different types of American cheese. I think it's supposed to be a blend of mozzarella and provolone, but I think A lot of other companies just make it out of vegetable oil or something like that.
Right.
And maybe that's the difference. Maybe if you get the real quote unquote American cheese, it tastes different than the other kinds. I don't know.
If you have Boar's Head products nearby, okay. So we both get a little particular about stuff. If you get it already packaged, the Boar's Head American cheese already packaged, it is not as good as if they slice it for you in the stores.
But still very good.
So, okay. So you've melted that in just a little bit and then
tear that slice up, put it on top, fold it into fold in the cheese, and then it'll melt from the eggs, and then just put it on, slide it onto a plate, and that's ready to go.
And you eat this with slices.
Generally, some of that pumpernickel bread with Brummelin brown on top.
Brummelin brown on top. There you go.
One more tip. I tend to use a lot of salt, but because of that, I tend to never cook with salt. So when I cook, I almost never add salt to my food because I know I'm going to salt that thing once it hits my plate. And it feels like the salt is more intense. It feels like when I add salt during cooking, it just kind of gets lost, and I'm going to salt it just the same amount on my plate anyway. So I'm not an expert, but my experience is that salt it on your plate. Don't salt it while you're cooking, salt it on your plate.
Well, you actually really love the flavor of salt, not necessarily the thing that salt does by enhancing flavor. You like salt flavor, so you like to taste the salt, right? Yeah. So that's what.
So yeah, I tend to not salt it because it's just going to add more sodium, and I'm going to just salt it anyway. So.
Yep. I hear you. I know this is, I cook for this man all the time.
You do a fantastic job. Brilliant, I gotta say.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for telling us about your scrambled eggs, Marty.
Yeah, I've been making this for a long time, so I've developed some opinions on the matter.
Isn't he the cutest? And I know, so much thought into scrambled eggs, but you've got to give it a try. They are perfection. Thank you, Marty. That was so much fun. What is also fun is that I am looking ahead to my cooking week. Now that I am back from Vegas, I am back in the kitchen testing, creating recipes. And what I have planned are actually things that Marty loves. Or actually, I don't know for sure that he loves the first one, but part of why I'm making it is exactly what I was talking about at the top of the show, that it is inspired by things that he loves. So I am doing a chicken paprikash this week, which is a traditional Hungarian dish with some bone-in or boneless chicken thighs that are braised in a tomato and paprika, like really rich, nice sauce, often served over egg noodles. And why I say I know that Marty will love it is because he loves Hungarian goulash. So I think he's going to love this one, and I cannot wait to start testing on it. I am also working on a chicken Milanese, which is like a breaded chicken cutlet. Think of like chicken parm without the sauce and cheese. Really great on like an arugula salad with tomatoes. So that is on the list for this week. And I do think Marty will like that as well. He loves cutlets of all kind, often served with some like fried mushrooms and sauerkraut, that Polish Slavic influence, of course, but still it's about the breaded meat more than anything. So I think he will like that. And then I'm also doing some more testing on the lamb recipes that I've been working on. In particular, I've got a couple of racks of lamb. I am doing a video showing how to cut them. I think I told you that I was doing that before. It got pushed back. So I have these racks of lamb in my freezer, and that got pushed back. I did end up doing one round of testing of the air fryer lamb chops, and they turned out even better than I expected, like way better than I expected, actually. So I am doing a little tweak on that and giving that a test this week as well. So there are a lot of tasty things going on in my kitchen, and they are all tasty things that Marty likes. He actually does like lamb chops as well. So we are good. He just doesn't like rosemary on them, and I think all of my recipes have rosemary. I will have to scrape those off for him, but it'll be okay. As to what is going live on the sites this week, there is just one new recipe. It is on Cook the Story, and it is that super easy spaghetti casserole that I was telling you about. This is the one where you literally just put uncooked spaghetti
and cooked ground beef, and then your kind of traditional spaghetti sauce ingredients with some extra liquid and some cheese into a pan covered with foil in the oven. And it just comes out like delicious spaghetti, baked spaghetti. Wonderful. Really saves me on a weeknight. I think I've told you this before. When I have plans to make spaghetti, like, oh, I'm going to make spaghetti for dinner tonight. And it's just been like a really stupid day. And I don't want to stand there stirring things, bring the pot up to a boil, feeling extra lazy, just throwing everything into a baking dish and walking away is the solution to my sanity, I swear. So that recipe is going live this week, and I know you're going to love it. It's really, really good. As to what I'm talking about on this podcast this week, there's some stuff that is leading towards Super Bowl, Samoan game day. I know I've done a lot of wing recipes lately. There is one more chicken wing recipe coming to you this week for breaded wings. Also, those salmon bites that I have been raving about. That is finally on the podcast this week. There is a homemade onion dip. It's meant to mimic that like packet Lipton onion soup sour cream dip, but homemade, made with caramelized onions. That is happening this week. Oh, and the whipped cottage cheese with the chili oil on top. This is like my favorite new dip. I started making it, I think it was like in November when my parents were still here. I made the first batch, and like every time I went into the fridge, I was holding a piece of pita in my hand and scooping this dip, and my mom was like, "You really love that." I ended up making like 3 more batches over the Christmas holiday season. That good. It's just, and it's healthy too, right? Like I know if I'm reaching for it with some carrots or some celery or some pita, that I'm having like a high protein, low fat, good for me snack, and it tastes so good. So that is going on the podcast this week. Make sure you are subscribed so you get all of the episodes. The easiest way to subscribe to this podcast is to look down at your phone and find your favorite podcast app. If that is Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Podcasts or YouTube, and then you go to that app and you search for Recipe of the Day, and you will find me there. Or you can go to cookthestory.com/ROTD, and there are little buttons that you can tap across the top. So go there on your phone, cookthestory.com/ROTD, and then just tap on whichever of those podcast apps at the top you like, and then you can click on subscribe or follow from there. And if you are listening on a podcast app that lets you do ratings and reviews, please give me one. Those ratings really help other people find me, and I really appreciate it every single time I see a review from one of you. It makes my day. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Marty. It has been a really incredible 8 years, and I cannot wait to see what we do next. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.